I am continuing the walkthrough, picking up from Dan, and we are at plot number 9, and this is Ilya Filomonstev from Russia. And this is very impressive. It's got that wow factor already. Not even really sure where he's going with this, but just all the different directions that everything is going. It has a very pleasing to the eye feel for me. I'll be really anxious. I am anxious to see where he's going with this. It's also very impressive, the size of it. It's huge. And they all have the same amount of sand. So you take into consideration strategically, the use of the sand, and you can see he has a second form over here that he's filling another form so he's another sculptor that's reusing sand. He's taking his shavings off of his main feature that he's carving on now and putting them into the second form, which will end up being part of the sculpture as well. I am with Deb Catuli from Saugus, Mass, and you can see that she's at a point right now where she's taking off another form. Now, depending on how long the sand has been sitting there inside the boxes determines when they can take it off. At this point, she could probably take off both those. She just took off one, and she could probably take off the next one, which it looks like maybe that's what she's starting to do. She's taking the plastic off so she can get to the nails. One thing I do notice about her setup here is she's got a big pad on the bottom. Now, one of the criteria is usage of sand. Now, just because it's a big pile of, a mound of sand now, doesn't mean she's not going to use it. That could strategically be part of her sculpture. So it'll be interesting to see if that's the case. Okay, we are at Paul Hogarth's spot from England, and you can see we talked about Paul's yesterday that he wasn't using any forms. He's doing hand pack, and it's a lot of low work. He's on the ground a lot, and it has its benefits and it has its drawbacks as well. You can see some of the tools he's using. He has a brush there. He has a straw hanging off of his neck. They use that to blow away the sand out of tiny areas. He has a baby going on. He also has some reference material. You'll see some of the sculptors use reference. It may not be exactly what they're sculpting. Oh, there you go. He's pulling it out for you. And they'll, refer back to it, and sometimes it's actually their sketch or drawing that they're referring to. But he's got a baby sleeping, and he's working on the detail of it. When you do hand pack, you have to kind of get the whole thing basically formed, and then you come back and you do a lot of your cleaning up and a lot of your details. So you see some areas that look really rough right now, and he will take care of that as he goes along. Okay, we're with Sue McGrew from Tacoma, Washington. And as we were just talking about Paul's site, where some people use reference and sketches, you can see up there to the left of her, where she's working is a sketch, and that is her sketch. So she knows exactly where everything is going. What she's doing now we call blocking out, and she removed 3 sets of forms to start with, and she starts proportionately. You want everything to be in the right place so that when you get down to the bottom, you're not you're not short on the sand that you've started your proportions too big. So it's important, and it works better if you get a few of the forms off, and it gives you more of a surface area to start working with and blocking it out. Blocking out is basically rough, hard, sharp lines. It's more about placement. And then she'll come back and do all the detail on it. Of course, keep in mind that you can only come down so far on those wooden forms, and you can't get back up to the top point. So she is at some point going to have to detail the top of it before she takes off the next form. This is Kuba Zimacek from Czech Republic, and we're on the side of his sculpture because I wanted to point out the reference to why his sculpture is closer to the fence. And the reason for that, and you'll also see that it's more forward than all the other sculptures are in a row, and his is farther forward. The reason for that is because when they started their pound up, he was one of the sculptors that put their form on the ground in front of the pile and then used the pile and shoveled into the form. So he wasn't able to get that height with a base but it still is very large. He's a strong guy. He can move all that sand, but you do see that he does have some sand behind there that he is going to have to use. All right, we're around the front of Kuba's sculpture now, and he's, when I mentioned before at Sue's piece how she was blocking out and would have to come back and do detail, that's what he's doing now on the left side of the sculpture. You can see on the right side it still has some, he's done some basic, well, more than basic blocking out, but he's now, you can see the difference in the two sides, how on the left side it's all very, very clean, nice smooth edges and smooth surface, and you can see also he's using much smaller tools. You'll see when they block out, they use the bigger trowels, and then the smaller the area is that you're carving, the tools get smaller along with it. You can see two figures, one on the right, one on the left, very stylized, nice flow to it, very nice. All right, we are with Rachel Stubbs from England, and she's moving along very nicely. You can see the bird on the front is blocked out, like we talked of before, sharp, hard lines, and then she will detail that. And speaking of detail, she has an incredible talent for detail, and you can see that already started in the background. You also notice a lot of these sculptors, she has her headphones on, and a lot of them really get into the carving and into the mood when they're listening to music. You know, they're just like any other athlete. There are things that motivate them, and music is predominant with the sculptors, and you'll see many of them with headphones on. Okay, we are with Pavel Milnikov from Russia, and he has a beautiful piece going. He's kind of combining blocking out and detailing. You can see he's mostly detailed her face. To the average person looking at that, that would be beautiful and detailed, but I know Pavel, and that is not finished. She'll be even more beautiful as the sculpture progresses, but he also has some blocking out going on. We're going to go walk a little bit to the right. We're going to walk, and I'll show you another feature. One of the things to keep in mind with all these sculptures is they're three-dimensional. They are judged 360, so they have to sculpt the whole sculpture. And when these sculptures are finished, you will notice that some of the sculptors didn't use their time as wisely, and the back of the sculpture might not be as detailed or as finished as the front. But what I'm noticing here is he has a feature starting, she's probably going to be either leaning up against a column, or the column is going to be obviously part of the sculpture, but in what way I'm not sure. But he has started to block out that column, and now I'm going to take you around to the back and show you something that comes into play with this column. Okay, so this is what I mean by carving 360. You can see that he has started on the back side to continue that column, and when doing that you have to make sure that it lines up. If you've got something that starts in the front and carries through to the back, it has to be in the same place on the back side. And he has started blocking that out. And what they do is a lot of that is going back and forth, from the front to the back, the front to the back. And all that does take time. You can see he's already started carving out down even lower on the back. And that helps move things along faster by moving around the piece and not staying constant and steady just in the front of the sculpture. And Pavel is a very trained and professional sculptor, and he knows how to work this pile. So that's a wrap and a conclusion on the walkthroughs of the plots today, 1 through 15. But you can see, even though we're finished with that, there's plenty going on. We have the sparkling ice people getting ready to set up. They're going to be serving drinks off of their sandbar. We have the Ferris wheel going. And I want to also give a shout out to Rick back at the studio. We'll see you tomorrow.